Have you ever stopped to wonder if your own personal beliefs, your own convictions, could actually shape what happens on the world stage? Well, in this explainer, we're diving into a really fascinating teaching that says exactly that. It draws a direct line from individual resolve to the grand sweep of history.
So let's just kick things off with that really big question. Can one person's inner strength, their personal conviction, genuinely change the course of world events?
According to the Hasidic teaching we're going to unpack here, the answer is a huge yes. We're about to see how an ancient idea of self-sacrifice creates a kind of blueprint for understanding the story of Purim, what's happening in the news today, and even a vision for what's to come.
Okay, so our journey really starts with the foundational belief that powers this whole worldview, the incredible power of just simple faith.
You know, the source material kicks off with a really powerful idea. Those huge, history-changing miracles, they aren't just for prophets or ancient kings. They're actually sparked. They're fueled by the simple, unshakable faith of everyday people. And that idea, that's the starting line for everything else we're going to talk about.
But you might be asking, how does simple faith actually turn into world-changing action? Well, the answer is this powerful concept right at the heart of the teaching. It's called Mesirut Nefesh.
Mesirut Nefesh literally translates to giving over the soul. But it's not about dying. It's about acting with a kind of conviction that just goes beyond all logic, beyond reason. The teaching explains it as an awakening of the soul's absolute deepest level, a core power they call the Yehidah, that, we don't normally tap into.
To make this idea a little more concrete, the source uses a really great analogy. Think about sleep, right? Our conscious powers kind of retreat, the body is inactive. Mesirut Nefesh is the polar opposite. It's a state where the soul's deepest power wakes up, takes the wheel, and directs everything with this almost supernatural focus. It's like the ultimate state of being awake.
All right, so now that we've got a handle on this concept, let's see it in action. The story of Purim is presented as the perfect historical case study for how this all works.
So, the story of Purim, with all its crazy twists and turns, isn't just a holiday tale here, it's treated like a spiritual blueprint. The teaching argues that the incredible miracle wasn't just some lucky break. No, it was the totally predictable outcome of a year-long spiritual cause.
And you can see that cause and effect laid out perfectly right here. First, you have the terrible decree. And what's the response? A whole year where the entire people, men, women, children, lived in this state of Mesirut Nefesh. And it was this collective spiritual energy that is said to have directly disturbed the sleep of the King of the universe, which then triggered the complete, miraculous turnaround.
Okay, and this is where the teaching takes a really interesting turn. It argues that this ancient blueprint, it's not just history, it's actually a model for understanding our world right now, drawing a straight line to modern geopolitics.
The source we're looking at points to things happening today, like what it calls an unusual silence from international groups, or the shifting alliances in the Middle East, and it sees all of this through that same spiritual lens. The argument being made is that other nations are starting to sense that these events are, well, something more than just politics, a divine war. So the really crucial point, from the source's perspective, is that these are not just random shifts. They are seen as a modern-day replay of the exact same spiritual dynamics from the Purim story, where all the worldly powers are being influenced by a much deeper divine reality.
And this same spiritual logic is applied to individual leaders, too. The source we're examining attributes the political survival of a leader like Benjamin Netanyahu not to his political maneuvering, but to what it calls a divine blessing beyond nature. And this blessing is specifically linked back to the late leader of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, the Rebbe.
So according to this teaching, all these parallel events, past and present, they aren't just repeating a pattern. They are all building towards something, a final prophesied stage.
The source points to a few key developments as signs that this final redemption, or Geula, is right around the corner. It cites things like ancient prophecies playing out as today's news headlines, and former enemies suddenly becoming allies. These are all viewed as direct proof that the prophecy, the time of your redemption has arrived, is happening right now.
So the ultimate conclusion of this worldview is that all these signs are pointing to an immediate and total redemption, and it's one that won't happen through struggle, but with joy, and with a speed that justifies any normal explanation.
But that kind of raises a question, right? If this is some grand cosmic drama with nations and ancient prophecies, where do you and I fit in? Well, the teaching brings this whole epic story right back down to the personal level.
So where's the engine for this whole chain of events? According to this teaching, you won't find it in world's capitals or on battlefields. You find it in the simple, day-to-day actions of every single one of us.
And this right here is the modern-day version of that huge concept, Mesirat Nefesh. The source argues that today, this incredible act of self-sacrifice isn't about some grand gesture. It's found in the daily choice of al-Yavosh, the decision to not be ashamed of what you believe, even when you're facing ridicule or social pressure.
This makes the final connection crystal clear. Every single time you stand up for what you believe in, every good deed, every prayer said with real intention, these are not small, isolated things. In this worldview, those actions are the very fuel that's powering the entire cosmic engine of redemption.
So, the big takeaway here is that you're not just a spectator watching history unfold. Your personal life, your choices, your own inner conviction, that is the main stage. That's the very place where this whole divine plan is actually brought to life.
Which leaves us with a pretty big thought to reflect on. If this teaching holds true, and every small act of your conviction really does contribute to a larger cosmic story, what part of that story are you writing today?